Let's do that. Put that up. And you are good to go, Jen.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Hello, everybody. My name is Jen Johans. I'm here at the Poison Pen bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm so excited to have with me two authors from Toronto, two wonderful authors, Nita Prose and Sue Hincenbergs. Nita has written the Maid series of books that are beloved. Everyone knows the Maid books, and I had the best time getting through that series over the last week and a half, and also reading Sue's delightful The Retirement Plan, which is her debut. And I just want to thank you so much for doing this and for being here. How are you both doing today?
Pretty darn good. How about you?
I'm
Yeah,
doing
very good.
well. Yeah, it's a little warm here in Scottsdale, so it's nice to stay cool, stay inside with a book, and you guys are just the people for that. Nita's latest, The Maid's Secret, was just released, and that is a wonderful series ender for fans of The Maid. And Sue, your book just came out as well. So
Mhm.
what has been going on? How has this been for you both? Sue, has it been a big whirlwind?
It has. It has. It's like the longest pregnancy ever, you know. You wait for it. And it's from the time you submit the book and then you just keep waiting for it to finally come. But it's like having a baby. It's you're on the tracks and you see you're heading for that wall. So, and then when I hit the wall, the book came out last week and it's been really, really great since then.
Yeah, my goodness. I was telling Sue off air that I follow her on Instagram, and it's just been amazing to see, the fans just eat it up. It's going to go all around the world. It's great. It's #1 in Canada. And your backgrounds are so interesting, both of you guys, of course. Nita, you have a background in education and publishing, and Sue, you have a background in television. So I would love to know more about that and what led you guys to storytelling. So, how did you know, Sue, that this was the right time for you to write your novel?
Well, I wasn't getting any younger, that was the thing. I'd always kind of hoped to write a novel. I'd fallen into books since I was a teenager, well, even younger than that. And it was a dream to write a book. And then finally, I was asked when I was retiring, and it was just like, oh my God, like it hit me right here. It's like, how old do you think I am? And then it was like, I realized I am that old, and I don't know when it happened. And I didn't have a retirement plan at all, but the only thing I knew is I'd always envisioned myself writing somewhere. And I just thought, if I'm gonna have this kind of writing dream as for retirement, I better get moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard Bruce Springsteen played a part in that.
Well, he was the dream, right? Like he's like the promise I made because it's hokey and I'm almost embarrassed to say it, but it's so true. When I was 20, like I said, and I could dreamed of writing a novel. I went to his concert. I was at Maple Leaf Gardens, 2 rows from the top. I didn't even know who he was. I was only there because I had free tickets. And if you've ever seen him in concert, he's just magnetic, right? He just like really gets you going. And it was the river tour, so it was all about dreams and having them and not giving up on them. And I just remember thinking, I promise, Bruce, I will write a novel. I will not give up on that dream. But then I did because I had kids, dogs, everything, right? I was in the car 5 hours a day driving to hockey practices. Who had time to think about my dream? And then, but he doesn't go away, right? He's on Broadway. He writes a book. He's releases another album. Every time he did, it was like a thorn in my side, just reminding me, like I made that promise to him and to 20-year-old me. And I kind of would dust that promise off and finally thought I better do something about it.
Yeah, well, I am so glad you did. And Nita, you were working in publishing. I love your stories. I'm hoping you can tell it for those who aren't aware about how Molly came to you when you were least expecting it, and you heard Molly, which I found very magical. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I worked for 20 years as an editor, so at various publishing houses. And I consider myself an accidental novelist because I didn't mean to write that first novel. maybe I did mean to write the ones after, but that first one was an absolute shock to me. I was going to the London Book Fair, which happens every year in London, where publishers and editors and agents all gather and we talk about the latest manuscripts and all the things we're reading and interested in. And I was staying at a London area hotel. I left, I came back a little while later after a meeting, and I completely surprised the roommate who was cleaning my room. And so I opened the door and she sort of jumped, shocked to see me at a strange hour of the morning. And the embarrassing part is what she had in her hands, which were my disgusting, sweaty track pants. Because I'd gone for a run that morning, then very quickly changed, gotten into a new outfit for my meeting, and thrown my disgusting pants on the bed, not thinking about who might be in my room next. And she was folding them all neatly, putting them on the made bed. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, it is such an intimate and invisible job to be a roommate. She'd been cleaning my room for days, so she knew everything about me. She knew the makeup I wore, where I'd been, because my schedule was out, what medicines I took, if someone had been in my bed or not. She knew it all. And I knew nothing about her. So it was funny. It was just one of those tiny little moments that somehow lodges in your brain. I didn't think about it for a few days. Then I was on my plane ride home and I started to hear this voice out of nowhere. And it wasn't all sloppy like me. It was clean and crisp and polished and precise. It was Molly. And I was not planning to write a novel. Unlike Sue, I did not have plans and promises made to Bruce Springsteen. So I grabbed the napkin from under my drink because I didn't have any paper and I started to write what I was hearing. And lo and behold, that little napkin turned out to be the prologue of The Maid.
That's
That's
great.
amazing. I love that. Sue, your premise is so delightful. It's dark, it's funny. How would you like to sum that up for people who are tuning in and wondering what the retirement plan is about?
Well, let me first say, I'm finding it very strange now as I'm talking to a lot of people face to face about the book, and when I tell them it's about wives thinking about killing their husbands, their faces are like literally lighting up. And it's like, I don't understand that. It's almost like a little bit disconcerting to me that there seems to be this like people can identify with this thought. But the premise of the book is that four couples have been friends for about 30 years and they should be retiring together. It's their dream, but they can't afford to because the husband's made a bad investment and lost all their retirement savings. So since then, their marriages have just withered and they're all just going through the motions. You know, they resigned to working till they die. There's no love in their marriages. They're just blame and shame. It's just dreadful. But then the wives realize the husbands have huge insurance coverage on them, and if their husbands were to die, they'd be able to retire the way they'd want to. So they hire a hitman because they have their limitations and they include poor upper body strength. They don't think they're going to be able to, haul these bodies around. So they hire a hitman, but what they don't know is their husbands aren't necessarily the duds they thought they were, and the husbands have already hired that same hitman for a job of their own.
I love the twist. They just keep coming in this book. And one thing that I enjoyed about both of these books is they're very entertaining reads. There's a mystery plot throughout with twists and turns. They're filled with these wonderful, very colorful Agatha Christie style ensemble casts of characters, both of you guys, but also a lot of heart. And there's yearning, there's secrets that are slowly revealed. So I'd love to hear you both talk about striking that balance. And Nita, I'll start with you with The Maid's Secret, because it's really beautiful how we start to hear Rand's voice in this one.
Yeah, so for readers who are familiar with any of the other books in the series, you'll know that Molly, my protagonist, is who we follow throughout the entire three other books. But in The Maid's Secret, there's a bit of a departure. Yes, we do hear from Molly, and Molly is, she's in a great place. She's doing really, really well. Her social cues have really come along since we've last seen her. She's absolutely smitten with Juan Manuel, her boyfriend, now fiance. And she has been promoted to head maid, and she's in charge of special events at the Regency Grand Hotel. So she is going to host a very special event where hidden treasures which is an antiques roadshow, a lot like the Antiques Roadshow. Why? Because I love the Antiques Roadshow. Is filming an episode in the hotel. And Molly is allowed to bring a few things in an old shoebox to be appraised. So she brings a few things from her gran. And lo and behold, one thing in that box turns out to be not a fake thing at all, but a really precious object and a work of art worth millions of dollars. And then Molly does exactly what I would do if I found out that I own something worth millions of dollars. She faints. I mean, it makes sense to me. Perfectly
Yes.
reasonable. So that launches the present tense story. But in the past, we also hear from a new character for the first time, and that is Gran. And while Molly goes from rags to riches in the present tense story, in the past, we learn that Gran was actually a very wealthy woman once, something that we might have known ever so slightly from other books, and that she lost everything, but she didn't lose everything because the thing she kept was the thing that is actually more valuable even than a Fabergé egg, and that is love. So in that past story, we have an epic star-crossed love story between Gran and another previous character that some readers out there might be familiar with, Mr. Preston, and who we meet as a young man. So these two stories sort of dovetail one into the other, and we can only solve the mystery through this journey to the past.
Yes, 100%. And for you, Sue, one thing that kept the pages turning for me was wanting to know, like you brought up the husbands and how they hired the same hitman and there's something going on, just wanting to know what is going on and what is going to happen with these characters. And one of my favorite characters, I don't want to spoil anything, but is Hector. And so I love the way that you deal in secrets. So kind of skirting around, of course. How did you strike that balance in your book as well?
I just thought it was important that you have some heart in it, that it can't all just be plot and twists and turns and that. And like just like Juan Manuel and Molly were meaty and tender. Everybody likes to see that in a book, I think. So with and the husbands and wives had these issues, of course, because why else would they want to kill each other, and or at least the wives wanting to kill the husbands. So there's grievances that are mined there. And then Hector came to that as the problem solver for the husbands and the wives, but I wanted there to be another aspect of him that we just had more the heart and obvious heart, whereas these other spouses, the four other couples, are at odds and conflicting and conniving and trying to rid each other of themselves. So it was just it's I think you need heart. Like when I finished Nita's book, it's like I had tears in my eyes because I closed the book, because it tugs at the heartstrings, and that's what you want to do, right? You want to feel something when you read. You don't want to just laugh and think, oh my God, what's going to happen next? But if you can touch the heart, then I think that's the best kind of book. So I tried to do that with that couple as well.
Yes, I think you guys both did that in your books. They're very different books, but you managed to, I think, really hit the emotional core of these stories and these characters, which is so great. Well, before I joined Poison Pen, my background is in film. I was a film critic and historian for a couple of decades. So one thing I loved about your books were the pop culture flourishes throughout. I'm a huge Columbo fan, so I love seeing Columbo so much, Nita, throughout your series. It, brought back all of my memories of watching Columbo. And Sue, I mean, I do need to ask because I loved all of the little, lines you were quoting and the films and the characters and the actors. So how did you want to cite more, but had to kind of like rein yourself in? Did you always know that it was going to be filled with that? Are you guys kind of pop culture people in your own lives? Or how did you do that on the page so well?
Well, I can say that the Columbo references for me come straight from my own life. And, so many authors are so reticent to talk about, what from their own lives they put in their books. Now, Sue, I am certain, has all kinds of things that are from her own life but not
Yeah.
not the murderous unhappy marriages, for instance. Maybe
Right.
other little Easter eggs throughout. But
Oh yeah.
Columbo for me is, a memory of my mother.
Oh,
When my mother was alive and when I was young, we used to watch that show together. And my mother, being the very interesting, exuberant person she was, used to talk to the television as though it could talk back.
yes.
She was obsessed with Peter Falk. She loved what he did on screen, but she could not stand the way he was dressed. So every time he would appear in his rumpled trench coat and his hair sort of, all
Yeah.
to one side, he'd be like, "Why can't he brush his hair? I just want to take that trench coat, wash it, and iron it for him." And so, and it made me laugh when I was young. It makes me laugh to think about now that she would actually converse with the actor on screen. And sometimes when you spend a long time in your writing cave, alone with voices that only you can hear in your own head as you try and pen this thing month after month after month, you amuse yourself with these little Easter eggs
Yeah.
that are reminders of, that heart that Sue was talking about, that beating heart of lovely little memories that you hope will somehow transmit some kind of truth in the fiction.
Yeah. I think all moms, and also I kind of tend to do that sometimes too, like, oh, come on. And you
Yeah.
do talk a little bit back to the screen sometimes. Yes. And I like what you were saying about hearing voices in your head as writers. We definitely do that. We spend too much time in front of our computers typing. And when Sandra Brown was here, she was talking about how that started for her in childhood. And she said her parents would catch her like having conversations with
Oh, wow.
a woman or a girl whose name was Charlotte, and they didn't know any Charlotte, and she hadn't read Charlotte's Web yet or something. And so just this ability to hear other characters and be making up stories. And so yes, I think that's great. I love that you paid tribute to your mom. And so
Mhm.
Sue, I have to ask, your Easter eggs, are some of these your favorite movies, ones you enjoy watching a lot?
Yeah, I watch a lot of TV and a lot of movies. I always have.
Yeah.
It's my thing. And I have three sons and that's what we do. We go to movies together and we trade shows and all that. So it was no extra research to come up with any of those. They just kind of like pop into your mind. It's like, you might have some people might have an adage or like a Shakespeare quote. I'm more likely able to quote Denzel Washington, and think of a movie.
Nothing
And
wrong with that.
yeah, and I thought about holding back on them. I thought, I don't know, they were almost like a little superficial, but then I thought, you know what? It's what I'm thinking. I have no idea if I'm doing anything right here or not anyway. So if it's like I want to put it in, why not? I wondered if some of them were a little bit too obscure, but then I thought, well, maybe people will Google them. And some of them I know would be like top of mind, like the Tom Cruise in Jerry Maguire, those kind of
Yeah.
things. And then others might be a little bit more obtuse. But I tried to weave it in that you knew who that was, like it was kind of identified in that page as well. So it wasn't something that was gonna, keep people up awake at night. Plus, the other thing is we all Google anything, right? If you don't know it now, just Google it and then you know. Nobody's gonna stew over anything for days. But I loved the peppering it, and I'm actually like hearing from people that they like those references too. So, and Columbo, I loved Columbo. It was one of my favorite shows too. It was
You
my dad
too.
and me. Yeah. Oh yeah. I love it. Nothing's better than getting like a Columbo rerun. Like maybe like a Law and Order marathon might just edge out a Columbo marathon.
Yeah, during the pandemic, I mean, I remember watching them in the 80s, like the reruns as kids, but I sat down and watched them all in the pandemic and I became so obsessed. I like back when I was on Twitter, I created a Twitter thread of like episode by episode with my nerdy thoughts and went viral as being like the girl who's obsessed with Peter Falk all of a sudden. So I was extremely excited to see other people loving Columbo as well. So yes, this is makes me very happy. And Nita, I know you said this is your last Molly Gray book, or that's the plan right now. Never say never. I mean, look at James Bond, right? Never say never. But I know that you found it hard initially when you first wrote The Maid to write a sequel or think of it as a series going in after the first book prove so popular. But having read The Mystery Guest recently, and I loved that one, did the rest start falling into place as you were plotting book two at all, or do you work book by book?
I really work book by book, and every time that I started another book in this series, I thought, there's no way, I've got nothing else. There's no more, there's nothing. And it's a weird kind of kismet magic that happens. For me, after The Maid was very successful and everyone wanted me to write a second book, I told my agents and my publishers, this is not happening. I never planned this as a series. There's no more. And what made me change my mind on that were readers. I got a lot of responses from readers saying, Molly means something to me. Molly helps me. Can you give me more? I just want more Molly. And that, when you hear that enough times, you start to think, maybe you should listen. And so then, that moment of magic happened. I was in the UK. I was touring for The Maid. I had one day off. So I decided to go to Brighton and to Lewis, this little town outside of Brighton in the UK, just for myself for the day. And I visited this castle museum, wandered around the castle, went to the museum, and then I came to see in this museum one glass case with the weirdest two things I've ever seen put together in a museum. The first thing in that case was a mummified rat. And the second thing, yeah, I'm thinking among all these beautiful objects, what the heck is this doing here? And then beside that was a very old silver spoon. So I'm looking at this going, why, like, what is it? And there was a little card that explained what it was there for. And it turns out it was a tribute to a maid who had once, long ago in the 1700s, worked in the castle. She'd been unceremoniously dismissed from her job after being accused of stealing a piece of silverware. And this was lore that traveled through the small town. Everyone was outraged that she was dismissed so needlessly. But many years later, like hundreds of years later, when they were renovating the castle, they opened up the walls and they found a rat's nest. And in that nest, with the rat, was that silver spoon. And this is all true. I'm not making it up. And that blew my mind. When I saw that, something just opened up for me. I saw the tapestry for another book about a maid who'd been so, egregiously harmed, who was always to blame, who could never be good enough. And that felt so in the conceit of the world of Molly, but I decided to add a different maid to that second book, and that maid was Gran. And we meet her when she's a maid in a very wealthy home in a mansion, and Molly is 10 years old. So that, sometimes there's just a bit of magic to writing when you get that lightning bolt idea. I don't know if it's like that for you, Sue. I think your premise sounds like a lightning bolt idea to me. One of those wonderful gifts of the gods. So many things are hard about writing, but those moments when you suddenly get it, you get the idea and you have something, they're really exciting.
What is your process like, Sue, and how did you come up with the idea for the retirement plan?
Well, noodling around in my mind about retiring because I'd been asked that question so rudely
Yeah.
already. Um, and so it was on my mind, but I wasn't ready to retire. But my husband and I have friends that we made years ago when our kids were little, much like the couples in the retirement plan. So there are three other couples. So there's eight of us that have gotten together over for like pretty often over the years. Our kids are all grown. They're all like in their early 30s now, and they see each other here and there, but we still get together. And we just have fun. And they say you don't make friends as you get older as easily. And we met up with them, I guess, when we were probably like in our early 40s. So I guess we've known them like 20, 25 years. And we've just have had a heck of a time with them. Like, you're laughing so hard, and then you look at your watch, it's like 4 a.m. And it's like, we got to get going, It's like, yeah, it's like one other couple invited us over one night unsuspectingly, and then we've never been invited back. Like, so yeah, we would for sure overstayed our welcome. But anyway, they were over at my house for dinner one night, and we were sitting around the kitchen table, and I just like I could appreciate what we have, and that, but also it's also fleeting. And I remember thinking about my parents. They had these great friends when I was growing up, and I remember when they started passing away, how sad it was. And in that moment, like I looked and I thought, like, this is great. We're all healthy, we're great, everything's going for us. And I thought, I wonder which of us will die first. And that's basically the first line of the
Wow.
book. And it's funny when I told them that later, because I started to let them know that they'd inspired this book. They were always, so who was it? Who'd you think's going to die first? So it's like some things I just can't tell, some things I just have to author's secret, author's
Yeah, I'm
discretion.
not sure you should fess up to to
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Yeah. So what did your husband say when you were starting to work on this premise? Was he getting a little alarmed at all, or?
Yeah, well, keeping in mind I'm a debut author who's never written anything before, and I would come into this room for hours on end, he would say working, because he had
Yeah,
no
air
idea.
quotes.
Yeah, and I think his biggest relief was that he could now watch as much golf as he wanted, undisturbed on the weekends. So, but I would bounce plot points off him. Like it's no spoiler to say that there's a garage door accident early in the book. And it was like, what do you think the garage door? Should it be electronic or like how could this happen? And that was like a full family discussion about how a garage door could come down. So that in mind, he knew those kind of plots. I would talk to him too about how if four men were on a boat, what would they talk about their marriages? Like how much would they reveal? So I had that feedback from him. But other than that, he never read the book until after it was sold. And then I
No.
heard him in the other room and he'd be reading away and I'd hear like, "Oh, come on." Because again, you're right what you know. And there was a lot of grievances in this book about marriages. So of course our grievances are in there. Like right now, there's probably four pairs of shoes out in that hallway when he's only going to wear one, you know?
Yeah, the little annoyances get in there. Yeah, when Alice
Yeah.
was here, she was talking about how, her plots often deal with a marriage and, she's very happily married and everything. And she said something about how when the book finally comes out and then she gets a call from her mother-in-law after and it's like, no, 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 yes. So that was funny, but yeah. So, you have to kind of, take artistic license and these great ideas, but
Yeah.
are you a plotter, a pantser? Like, how do you like to work?
For me, I'm probably half and half. I have signposts that I
Oh,
know I
okay.
want to hit and they
Yeah.
shift. I'm
Yeah.
not a plotter. I know that now. Because again, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was taking all these courses and I was reading all the books. I
Yeah.
had post-it notes and things underlined, and I just realized I just don't know how, I don't understand any of it. I don't know what break into Act Two means. I barely know what an inciting incident is. And I thought I just have to know, I've read a lot, and I'm just gonna have to like trust my intuition and go along with that. But I'm curious about you, Nita. Are you a planter, plotter, or pantser?
I'm both. I call myself a plantser.
Mm,
So, I definitely know the big twists and turns before I start a book. Those come to me very early on in the process. And for me, the magic happens when I know some things and then I don't know how to get to those important scenes. So that not knowing really fuels me. And I really hold on to those scenes that I could write at the very beginning of the process. I don't allow myself to write them. I save them as a reward
Oh,
so that I have to get through all the tough slog of figuring out everything that I do not know and how, the rising action is going to work and how the breadcrumbs are going to fall and keep the reader intrigued and all those things that we have to think about when writing a mystery. And the mechanics of it can be very, very tricky, while balancing it with character and a propulsive plot and all the other things. So I get through all that tricky stuff, then I get to write the scenes that I always wanted to write from that very first day. And so for some reason, that balance of knowing and not knowing, of really, really keeps me motivated on a daily basis to write.
oh, wow. So you actually can jump around in your plot like that?
I don't jump around much, but I
Okay.
do know how things end. Like
Okay.
that I know, and I won't let myself write it. Not until I get there chronologically.
Wow, that's great. my friend William Boyle talks about he has to get up super early before the kids get up and get his writing done. And he says he always stops himself at the end of a session, like before he gets to the part he really wants to write. And
Yes.
right before that. So then the next day he's excited to get back to it, which I
See,
think
that is absolutely
clever.
brilliant. That's brilliant. And I had great advice from one of the authors that I used to work with, Liz Nugent, an Irish author. Because I was really struggling the next day to start up again and losing my place and going back and reading and all the rest. And she's like, well, it's really simple. You just don't finish the night before. So don't finish that sentence. That sentence that you know how it ends, don't finish it. Leave it hanging, close your document, resist the urge to put a period on it. And the next morning you just go. Go from that sentence and keep going. And you know what? It's such a silly tip, but it's so useful.
I heard that too, and I think of it as an on-ramp, that it leaves you your on-ramp to get on there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Instead of stalling and waiting and trying to find a spot, right?
Yeah, you're not at a stop sign. You're just like,
Yeah.
gliding onto
Yeah.
the freeway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sue, you have so many characters that you have to keep straight as you were working. Did you have any tricks going in, or did these people come to you fully formed? Were you basing them on some people that you've known? Were you thinking, oh, this would be Denzel Washington, or these would be, were you thinking of actors, or what were you thinking to keep everyone straight as you began to work?
I was thinking a bit of actors. Like I had their voices in my head, and I at one point I had a spreadsheet with little pictures of everybody that I would aspire to have. Except for the Hector. Hector was always my husband's barber.
Okay.
You know, and in the initial stages anyway, like that's who the mysterious character was. And then I did put an actor to him as well. But that's how yeah, I found that really, I never had to really refer to it. I always knew who they were in my mind. They switched around a little bit too, depending on my mood, I guess. But the women I pretty much always knew, and then the husbands would just kind of fluctuate. The husbands, funny, weren't as specific in my mind as the women. The women I had nailed completely.
That is interesting. And I know you sold the film rights, and Nita, they are working on a film adaptation of The Maid as well. So these are in different stages, of course. And I know authors usually don't get a big input on what happens, but do you have any like dream cast? I know, Sue, you actually wrote in kind of a dream cast scene in your book, but do you have any wishes for the film versions at all, or any thoughts?
For me, I don't. From the very beginning, I never could see Molly as an actor. I have her in my head. I know what she looks like, but I think there's so many different people who could do such a wonderful
Oh,
job
yeah.
of that. However, since the very first day I put Mr. Snow, who is the hotel manager at the Regency Grand, into being, I saw him as Stanley Tucci.
I
Oh
love
yeah.
that. Yeah.
And he's so like well put together, but a little bit awkward. And
Formal.
he's just an oddball. He's a bit of an odd chap. And I think Stanley Tucci would do a great job of that.
Yeah, I love
I
that.
agree. Yeah. And I think with Molly, there's so many actresses could bring so many different things to her that I
Yeah.
wouldn't even want to picture who she'd be. I think you'd be maybe disappointed if you knew, if you had a preconceived notion. That would be best as a surprise, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And what's fun to think about your film is all those women,
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
older women finally getting to, have glorious parts where they're in control, you know?
It's like
Yeah.
That would be
widows.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say the movie people were really excited. We had a call about it and they just said that there's lots of talent that would be interested in doing this. And they also kidded me for pretty much casting the whole movie in the book, right? And, and I was in revisions at that point and I said, well, do you want me to take that out? Like, is that going to be a problem? And they said, well, when they submit the screenplay, they wouldn't be in the screenplay. They wouldn't do that. So it wouldn't be an issue. I'd have to think an actress actually would read the book first. But for the men, I thought I had visions, but it kind of like they keep fluctuating because it's like a group and it's the that's important to me, the dynamic. So it could be like George Clooney and Brad Pitt, or it could be like Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, right? It's like
Yeah.
whoever. I just feel they should have a real chemistry amongst themselves.
A good rapport. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What surprised you most about writing and then publishing your first novel?
Gosh, it's been, well, for one thing, how slow it is. That's one thing.
Like you
Um,
said, the longest pregnancy. Yeah.
yeah, and just the gatekeeping, like how difficult it is to get in. Like half the challenge is writing a book, the other half is getting like representation and getting it published. I just always had faith too, like good stories, it's the same as anything, right? Like if people want good stories. So I found even when I worked in TV, like there's a lot of competition, but people want to know the good stories. So I just held on to that and hoped I'd have the ability to create a good story. Um, I think it's been a really welcoming thing. That's the other thing, like the whole community and the writing community. Once I tapped into that and found like the podcasts and websites and things like that, and the Instagrams and started following people, it's really supportive. It's like, um, I think the thing is everybody approaches it like, when you read a good book, you're not just going to read one good book. You want to read another good book right away. So there's like room for all the books, and everybody just wants all the good books to be found. So I was really happy about the sense of community.
How about you, Nita? I mean, you obviously have written a few by now. What was the thing that surprised you the most with your first book, about either writing or publishing? Of course, you knew the other side of publishing a bit. And then what has that changed at all a couple books in?
I knew the industry very well, so that
Yeah.
nothing of what Sue just said was surprising to me. I knew the ins and outs. I knew how hard it was. I was terrified of how hard it was. So all that was pretty well known. But what was different, was being an author. Like it was going to the other side.
Okay.
And I always talk about this in terms of the metaphor of a labyrinth. Like when you're a writer, you're standing in front of this maze of story and you have to go into the maze, work your way through all those twists and turns, try not to get yourself stuck in a dead end, and see your way through to the end of the maze, the end of the novel. Um, and when you're an editor, you're standing on a ladder outside watching the author go through their paroxysms of writing. And very often I was aware as an editor that writers were very vulnerable and they couldn't see. They always said, I don't see it, I don't understand, I don't get it. They couldn't see. But as an editor, I never felt that way. I had so much confidence. And when I acquired a book, it was because I knew how to help the author publish it, and edit it and all the things. But I felt like when I became a writer myself, I gave away my eyes. I suddenly became completely blind.
Oh,
And
wow.
instead of standing on that big ladder looking down into the maze and being able to tell the writer, okay, if you go down that story avenue, you're going to get lost. You're going to come to a dead end and you'll never finish your novel. That is not the way to go. You need to go this way. I knew that intuitively as an editor, not as a writer. As a writer,
Really?
I was blind and I felt insecure and vulnerable all the time. I now, after 4 books in, know that's part of the process.
Mhm.
That feeling is just something I have to get used to. And in fact, it's a very good thing for a writer to feel that way. That beginner's mind, that feeling of unsteadiness is the way you find your way, in fact. But it was tremendously difficult for me to get used to that difference.
I
Wow,
like what
that's
you were
amazing.
saying. Yeah, both of you
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, beginner's mind. I think that's so important. So you don't get jaded or you don't kind of fall into the same rhythm. Yeah, that is a really smart way of looking at it. And Sue, I loved what you were saying too about how welcoming it is and how
Yeah.
that was a really good surprise. That is something I find that I love talking to so many crime writers and my friends Megan Abbott and Allison Galen. They said that they were talked to once, like, you guys are so well adjusted and you write the darkest stuff. And there's something I think about mystery writers. You guys are just the sweetest people. And so I do kind of find that with your genre that you're kind of the most down to earth, just sweet people. So I loved hearing that.
Thank you.
I think we get all the evil onto the page, and
I
then
think
we're
so.
left with whatever else there is.
Yeah. That's one of
Yeah.
the things that surprised me about this whole process is that I'll be thinking something and I'll think, oh, that'll never happen. And then it's like, oh, it could. I can make that happen. It's like it is in
Yeah.
my power to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Before we jumped on, Patrick was joking to Sue about, our hitman, hitman approaching you at events or anything, Sue. So, yeah, do you ever, are you getting asked any weird questions about these wives that are getting the delightful look in their eye when you're summing up the plot and you're starting to worry or get
Yeah.
ideas for your next book?
It is kind of crazy. It's almost like not like a little bit off-putting. They're like, "Oh, murder your husband." Oh,
Is
And
this the house
yesterday,
you
or
want? Yeah.
the day before Mother's Day, I was at an Indigo, like a big bookstore here, with a book signing. So there, picture me at the entrance with my table full of books, and I realized like people weren't lining up to see me because nobody knows who I am. It's my first book. I literally had to like be grabbing people. So as they were walking by. I'd see the kids coming in. I know other teenagers are looking for their Mother's Day gift. So I'd say, "Has your mother ever talked about killing your dad? I got the book for you."
I love it.
Yeah. And they would stop in their tracks. And as a
Well,
matter of
who
fact,
wouldn't?
yeah, she kind of has. Yeah. I sold all the books on my table.
I love
Yeah,
that.
with that line.
Yeah, you were in TV, you were a producer, you know how to sell a story, right?
Yeah, that's right. I know how to catch them. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask that about your background. Did that play a part in the way you know how to jump into the action or setting up scenes or plot lines?
Well, not so much because the TV I worked in wasn't like a series or anything. Like I have worked on series, but it was always like a production, like being in the control room, calling the
Yeah.
shots on the camera. Like it's always the technical part of it. I never like put the words on the script, though I would have liked to have, but I never did the work to get to that kind of job. But what the writing I did do and the storytelling I did was in like morning television. I was with one of Canada's largest morning TV show for like 15 years and putting stories on the screen. And what I learned there is I would write the intros that the host would read as they introduced a guest. So you had to be quick and like catchy and clear, concise. And I never realized it at the time, but you only had 20 seconds, and the shorter the better. So I got very good at just carving words away from a paragraph because, I'd look at it on the page and and it'd be like, it's just too much. That word's not needed, that word's. And that's really helped me as an a line level in that it's just, I don't have extra words because I've been cutting them for like years.
Wow, so that's good practice. So both of you guys
Yeah.
have some background in cutting words and knowing that side of it. Yeah, but that's interesting. So morning television, you would know like what grabs a person of interest, stories, and that kind of thing, and probably some larger than life stories that you covered. Do you have any ideas? We have people asking about your next novels. Do you have any ideas that you're working on? Is this all still too much and you're focused on this one? Or are you working away on something in secret?
No, it's pretty much done. I handed it in, and I was told by a mutual author friend of Nita's and mine, Bianca Murray, that I did it really smart in that I handed the book in before this book came out. So yeah, and I realize now what she means by that because this has been like it's just there's a lot of distraction. But I handed it in March, and so I've got now I just have to do some revisions on it. But and I learned too that it has to be the same. Your readers want to read the same. It's like I know that when I pick up like a Patricia Cornwell book or a Nita Prose book or John Grisham, I want to have the same feeling I had the last time. So that's what I focused on, and so it's the same feeling, different characters, but it's still like the my favorite genre is bad people doing bad things, or maybe not so bad people, and that's what it is. It's more people doing bad things in a neighborhood. So I'm doing that again.
Okay, so in the same world, essentially. Yeah, Jen
Yeah.
McKinley likes to say she's always asked from publishers the same but different. Kind of,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
that kind of,
And the humor, like now that I know that I can do the humor, like I can bring it, like I can share it on the page, which I wasn't sure if I could do, if it would work. And now and I know I can do that. So I'm happy. I'm comfortable in that realm. So I leaned into it when I was writing the last time. I thought I might be the only person who ever reads this. I'll just do what I like, and I liked it. And now to have it like book people liked it, and now that it's out in the public and public people are liking it, I'm thinking, okay, I can keep doing that.
Yeah, a good story is a good story. I mean, if you're enjoying it and you're writing the book you want to read, other people will want to read it too. Everybody
Yeah.
likes different things. And Nita, I know we have somebody asking if Molly is still speaking to you in your head. Do you still hear her occasionally?
Sometimes I do. Certainly when I'm talking about the book, I feel like, she's knocking around in there, also wanting to be heard. But I do see this as the final book. The Maid
Yeah,
Secret is the final book in the series. Maybe 10 years from now, I'll come up with a great idea and see what, other path there will be. But I think that's it for now. So I'm working on other things too. And yeah, what I'm working on next is a little bit different. It is a mystery, yes. So
okay.
that's the same. What is different is it's attached to a thriller. I love books that combine genres. I always have. That's what I edited, and that's what I like to write.
Yeah,
And it features Jane, who's an older character. She lives by a lake in cottage country in Canada, in the Muskokas. And her grandkids come up one day. They go traipsing around in the woods, and they come back with something that Jane had hoped would remain buried forever, and it changes the trajectory of her entire life. We also meet her when she was younger, through the course of her memories in the 1950s when she was growing up on that lake and she was a young girl. It's a novel about landscape and wilderness and about how nature has the power to both heal and to harm. It's about, the lens of time and how as we grow, we can understand those coming of age moments in ways that we didn't when we lived them.
yes.
Mhm.
And it's about the unbreakable bond of sisterhood between two sisters, and one that lasts even beyond the grave. So that is what I'm working on now. As you can tell, it is not exactly a cozy, but what is the same is that I will always, it's just who I am as a writer, I will always situate the reader behind the eyes of a character. The character will begin being quite prickly and difficult to deal with, but hopefully if I do my job right as a writer, you move with them, you learn their stories, and then hopefully you come to love them.
Yeah. Like Sue was saying, either bad people doing bad things or not so bad people. Yeah, you have to get to know them. I think that's one of the things we love about movies and books is you can live vicariously through these people you would never meet. Sometimes you don't want to meet these people, or you'd want to walk the other direction if, a hitman or something, you never know. But I do love that about your books, that we get to inhabit these worlds and meet all of these wonderful people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. That's going to be a little bit of a different task
Yeah.
for you. Yeah, and I'm excited for you, Sue. I think that was smart because I can't imagine trying to be working on something with all of this going on right now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they say too, when you have rejections, when you're waiting in the query trenches to keep writing. So it was the
Yes.
same kind of thing. It's like once you're done something, you just want to keep the routine in a way and keep it going. So that's what I thought. I just sat down and was happy to do it. It's nice to visit with these people. I kind of miss the other characters. Like I imagine, Nita, you're gonna miss Molly and that, and I miss getting into the van with Pam and her pals, but now I have somebody else to pal around with.
Yeah, again, from that conversation with Tess Gerritsen and Sandra Brown, where they were talking, they were saying how, when they have to go do tour events or they have to do other things, like Sandra, I'm a little jealous. Like they're having fun without me and I'm doing stuff. Like, what are they doing when I'm not there? And so she wants to go and be able to write down and figure out what her characters are up to. So I like that.
Yeah.
Going in the van and palling around with these wonderful people in the retirement plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder what it must be like for authors who have like different casts of characters, like 5 different books and 5 different casts. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with you, Nita, when you get away from Molly, because I don't know like how you keep them straight, like 4 books down the road, you know? Just
Yeah, well, it is tricky, let me tell you.
yeah.
Having written a series that I did not plan as a series is a very tricky thing. But it's, you know what is really amazing is you really do discover that as writers, what we put on the page is only 10%. And there's all that space in the margins and between the lines that that isn't words that somehow buys believability and offers space and portals into further stories and narratives. I always knew that was true as an editor, that, what I see on the page is just a fragment of the work that the author has done to buy my believability as a reader. But now I experience that, and it's yet another thing I experience from the other side as a writer. I now know that to be true.
Yeah, and I know you're both readers, so have you read anything good that you want to give a shout out to
I recently
lately?
finished Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall, and it is astonishingly good. It really blew my mind. I don't want to say too much about it. It's a novel about grief, but it's also a novel about young love and the lasting impact of young love. I just if there's anyone out there who, is looking for something like Where the Crawdads Sings, this is the closest thing I've seen since that book came out, although it's very different. But there's a feeling to it, a feeling of this place and this setting, really getting into the bones and the skins of the characters. It's brilliant.
I've got it there. I was looking. Yeah, I'm waiting for it. I find that's the one downside writing is that I don't get to read as much as I like to or that I used to. Because if you have the time, it's like now I feel like I need to be devoting it to my story and writing it as opposed to reading. But I just finished reading. Well, I've been in a lot of bookstores lately, and a bookseller there told me about this author I'd never heard of, S.A. Cosby.
Oh yeah.
One
Yeah,
of my
so I
best friends.
read, he's what?
One of my best friends, the
Oh, is
sweetest
he really?
guy.
Oh,
Yes.
well, I love it. Like I just
Oh,
read,
That's amazing.
I
this
just
will
read my
make his day.
darkest.
I'll tell him.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, tell him I love him, and I'm so glad I wrote a book that I went into a bookstore and was telling somebody about who told me about a book that I learned about him. So I just read My Darkest Prayer, and I've got Blacktop Wasteland here that I've just started,
Oh my
and then
gosh.
he has a new one coming out, Ashes, something
King of Ashes
King
comes
of
out
Ashes.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Razor Blade Tears is amazing. I don't know if you
Oh
Mm.
read that
yeah.
one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sean
Yeah.
blows my mind. I've known him since like before Blacktop Wasteland came out. Like a week before, he was so nervous about it, and he was actually like
Oh.
borrowing headphones from somebody else at work. Like, yeah, I've got this book and I'm nervous because I do a podcast on movies and I love having authors on. And so that's how I
Yep.
met
There
Sean.
it is right there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so, but Sean is one of those people who just loves writing. It kind of drives everyone nuts. Like he'll just in a group chat, like insert a block of text and he'll be like, yeah, I don't know, this character, maybe this is 3 books out. And you're like, what are you doing? Like he just loves writing and has like endless energy. Yeah. So I'll
Really.
tell him that's so cool.
That's very
Yeah.
cool.
It is, and
Yeah.
I'm dying for the movies. Like that's have any of his books been? See, I haven't even Googled him much because I just found out about him. But have any of his books been made into movies yet?
They've pretty much all been optioned.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
not made.
Jerry Bruckheimer is working on Razorblade Tears, but I don't know what's going on with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll keep watching then, and I'll keep reading. Yeah, I'm really enjoying them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I think it's good. You know, you go on tour, you meet other authors, you discover other books. So that's really wonderful. And so, Sue, we've had a couple questions. Let's see. Somebody wanted to know they saw a little critter running behind you. So,
Yeah.
who was
Let's
that?
see. Is he there? Can you? Oh, there. There he is.
Oh,
That's
Oh,
Elmer in the book. Um,
tired boy.
oh,
yeah, he's always
Elmer.
tired.
That's
Yep.
amazing. Okay,
That's right. When
we got a
we've
good
had him
cameo here.
Yeah, we've had him for 4 years, and I Googled at one point how many hours a day should a dog sleep? Because I figured between his walking and his eating, he only had like 21 hours left in a day, and that's about what he slept. So, um, but I was almost finished writing the book, and I realized it needed a dog. Like the villain essentially said, "I'm not a villain." And I thought, yeah, how do you know he's not? And I thought the save the cat mentality, because I've been reading all those how-to books. And
Oh,
save the
yeah.
cat, right? If you want a character to be nice, you show he saves a cat. And if you want him to be vile, you show he's harmful to a dog. So I thought I need to write a dog in this book. And I looked and he was there probably. He's always like within 15 feet of me. And he's missing half his teeth. He's spits out treats. He's lumbers around. So I just thought I wrote him in and all his quirks. I wish they were in my imagination, but they're not. Elmer is like Kramer.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad then we had quite a good note to end on there with
Yeah. Oh, I'll
Elmer.
show you this too. He's in the artwork. Like this is the artwork of the cover. You could see where
Ooh.
but there's Kramer there.
Oh my
They
goodness.
drew him in. So
That's wonderful.
He doesn't look impressed by that though.
No,
no, I know.
he's still sleeping.
The
Yeah,
He's the
fame has
chillest
not
dog.
gotten to his little fuzzy head yet.
Yeah, no, he
that's
never
good.
barks.
Yeah.
Like, never moves in a hurry, stretches out his groin as soon as he stands up. He's a funny dog.
Okay. Oh, and somebody else asked, does Bruce know about the promise that you made? Have you heard from Mr. Springsteen
No,
yet?
but
Okay.
my husband's an old friend of my husband's knows him, has had dinner with him and Patty. And so I asked him if he could get a book to him, and he said no promises, but he'd try. So we're going to try that. But Bruce is touring right now. Again, he's away till July. So by the time my friend said to like put a transcript from an interview that I had talking about him. Not it wasn't enough that he starts the acknowledgments. The acknowledgement starts with, first of all, I'd like to thank Bruce Springsteen.
Yes, you
So
did. That's
yeah.
right.
So anyway, yeah, I'm going to give him a book and hopefully that'll get to him.
Oh, I know. That will be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, ladies, I want to thank you so much for doing this. This was such a pleasure. Is there anything I didn't cover that you guys wanted to ask each other before I let you go?
I have a question for Nita. It's just like, Nita, you are out there all the time and promoting in that. And it's just how where do you find the energy? And like, or where do you find time to write? I don't know how you do it.
Well, it's seasons, right? As you'll come to see. You have a season of promotion and then you have a season of being holed away in your writing cave. And for
Okay.
me, that works really well because I'm an extrovert introvert. You know, I love my alone time and I love being in the solitary world of my characters and writing. Sort of like Tess Gerritsen, right? That same mentality of I want them to speak with me and I want to speak to them.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
then the season of touring is a different thing altogether. For me, I love it. I love it. It's the yin to the yang. It's that moment when finally, after all that time that you spent crafting this thing that you don't even know what it is,
Hmm.
finally you get response from readers, which for me is incredibly important and, largely the reason why I do this. So yeah, it's seasonal. That's how.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a good answer. I can see that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I right now you're in the thick of promotion and touring and social media and you're in it. But
Yeah.
that'll change and you'll be able to have your free days and your mornings again to to write.
Yeah. That's right. I'm looking forward to just walking Kramer, coming back here
Yeah,
and spending our
exactly.
days
Getting
like
lost in
this.
your mind, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, ladies, again, this has been such a joy. I want to congratulate you on these novels. I had the best time, losing myself in these wonderful worlds. Right now, current events being a little bit scary, understatement. If you're looking for something and you just want something great to read spring and summer, these are both terrific. So I highly recommend The Retirement Plan and The Maid's Secret. And once again, thanks so much for chatting. This was such a pleasure.
great. Thanks a
Lovely
lot, Jen.
speaking with you both. Thank you.
Yes, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We lost Patrick.
Okay.
Let's see.
Wasn't he beside you?
He was. He dropped down.
Oh.
Yes.
Can you tell if everything recorded okay?
Yes, should be good. Thank you. One moment.
Sure. So Sue, is this your first Zoom like book clubby thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And should I have been on earlier? Because I was surprised when I thought I was early and then you guys were already there and I thought I wasn't late, was I? Should I?
No, you weren't late at all. I don't think
Okay.
they specified a time. I'm just paranoid about tech issues and I'm not good with
Mm-mm.
computers, so I always show up early just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I had
You
one
know,
earlier today and I had to switch to my laptop, but I troubleshooted since then.
very good. It's always very stressful when
Yeah.
tech gets the better of you.
Yeah, and especially when you're here alone and like I'm used to problems like this in TV, but there was always somebody there you'd say, "Can you
Well,
fix
this
this?"
is
And now
it.
it's
You've
like
got a
the
team,
buck's
right?
yeah, the
Yeah,
buck stops here and it's like, "Ooh, the
I
last
know.
person who should be doing this."
Same, us. I am
Yeah.
the last. You're second last, maybe, but I am just
Yeah.
dreadful and awful with tech. I just can't help myself.
Yeah.
So,
So you're going to be in Ottawa and I'm going to come see you because I'm on after you.
oh, that's awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Yes, I leave tomorrow. I do an event tomorrow night in Almont. Is it called
Uh,
Almont or Almonte? I don't know.
oh, I don't know.
It's somewhere close to Ottawa. Um,
Yeah.
and then I go on to Ottawa. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Big
that'll be my first
festival.
like yeah, my first live event too.
Oh,
So,
amazing. Oh,
yeah.
you'll have a blast. It's a
Yeah.
really, the audience there is so warm.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they're real book people.
Great.
Did you find him?
I am texting him.
Oh,
So,
okay.
uh,
That's so cool that yeah, so SA Sean, as you call him, is your buddy.
yeah,
That's
Sean is a good
amazing.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, had you heard of him much, Nita? Like, am I just missing him being in Toronto, or or was he on your radar too?
He was on my radar, but then again, I've been in publishing for 20 years, so
Mm,
it's a little different, right?
yeah.
Here comes Patrick.
Here he
Okay.
comes. Make sure our tech is working and we have a recording.
Hi, I paused the Zoom. I don't know if I did that okay or
Okay.
yeah, at the end, and then wasn't sure how to
Oh, yeah.
stop.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Bye, Facebook people.
Bye.
Oh,
Bye. Thank
And
you.
then bye, YouTube people.
All right. Take care.
okay.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
And okay, so we're no longer streaming, but awesome.
Okay, so I'll say goodbye too. Thank you very much. I'm
Yeah.